is Jordan, joined by my brother, as people tell me, Josh Fox, my twin. So let's just start. We got Keystone coming up. Construction there is starting soon. Obviously, you were one of the leading leaders against the fight there, dating back to the last decade against Keystone. Very dangerous, crosses thousands of water bodies. You also obviously have obviously the lead that we're seeing in Newark now. Still we have problems in Flint, other places. You're also seeing lunatic in Brazil destroying the Amazon. It seems like the United Nations and the 12 years thing might need to be amended.
Well, we're already in 11 years by now, right? But it's true, the environment's under assault all across the world. And it's because of this administration. There's no question. That's why we need a candidate that will appropriately address this emergency. And the only one who's doing that is Bernie Sanders. I mean, if you look at the Green New Deal of every other candidate, no one comes close in terms of how much money is spent, what a priority it is. We're talking about, I think, a $12 to $16 trillion plan for the Green New Deal for Bernie Sanders. How do we get the money? We tax the rich and we scale back military spending. That's who owes us. That's who's oppressing us right now. We know that, right? The billionaire class and the military. So we can fix this problem. We can fix the world, but it's going to take incredibly bold leadership. And there's nobody in the Democratic field who's doing that except for Bernie.
Right. And what's amazing to me, I mean, you see it everywhere. Even like in the beginning of October, it was like 90 degrees on the day of the strike that thousands of people came out. I feel like the media, it's almost like they're Republicans in a way when it affects them. So it's like, it is an emergency, but they treat, I mean, listen, Trump, the impeachment, I support it. But I mean, what's more important here? The Ukrainian stuff? Can we walk and chew gum at the same time is what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, just to address the climate strike, it was the most hopeful, most beautiful, most optimistic march, one of my top 5 marches of all time, right? I mean, this was 200, 300,000 people, 50% of them under the age of 16 years old. I mean, you could not stop these kids.
3 million globally.
Yeah, globally. But here in New York, I'm talking about, right? So you had this incredible exuberance, this never say die attitude, this amazing innocence. That's what we need, right? We need optimism, we need hope, and those kids have it. So we got to follow what those kids are doing. It is unbelievable, right? So I forget the second half of the question, but
the media is treating this as an issue rather than the issue.
Let me just say something. You know, Joe Biden and Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton were pushing fracking as a policy throughout all of Europe, Eastern Europe especially, Ukraine especially. So, you know, we have to impeach Donald Trump, absolutely, but there does need to be a long look taken at democratic policies that support environmentally destructive policies. Donald Trump is going down. Donald Trump is going to get impeached. The impeachment's going to last a long time. Donald Trump has to be removed from office. The man is a maniac. The man is insane. And the man is obviously not fit to be president in a thousand different ways. And this is just one of the ways that he's been caught, and we have to make sure that that happens. But we also have to make sure that we're not voting for Democrats to support fracking. Right. Joe Biden supports fracking. His son was in the Ukraine pushing fracking. That is an incredible conflict of interest. It always has been a conflict of interest. I'm not, saying that like there was some kind of quid pro quo, but definitely you've got to look at American foreign policy that's pushing the fossil fuel industry all across the world, and the Obama, Biden, Clinton mess was all part of that. So when we're looking at Joe Biden's candidacy, we absolutely cannot continue to have a person who's pushing any kind of fossil fuel. And that's clear. It's Heather Zeichel, who left the Council on Environmental Quality at the White House for a board position at Cheniere Energy, a lucrative board position, right, at the #1 fracking export company in the world, is now Joe Biden's environmental advisor. It's a very tight-knit circle of people who are a revolving door between the fracking industry and those neoliberals. We have to make sure that we're not voting for them. Bernie Sanders is the way out of that.
Well, frankly, elephant in the room, I don't know what Elizabeth Warren's position really is on fracking. I looked on her website at first, there was nothing on there. Then when asked, her campaign said she's against it, but you're pretty astute. Has she been a fighter against these things as long as Bernie?
No one's been a fighter as long as Bernie. And, the truth of the matter is that Elizabeth Warren changed her position on fracking minutes before the CNN climate debate. Originally, she was for a halt on fracking on public lands, but it's like, you know, the vast minority of fracking happens on public lands. The majority of fracking happens on private lands. So then she came out and she said, I'm for a ban on fracking on private lands as well, which was extremely welcome. And I welcome her joining the chorus of Democrats who are saying that fracking should be abolished. That is a major victory for our movement. But yes, absolutely, it starts with Bernie Sanders. It starts with Bernie Sanders saying back in 2015, 2016, we're for a ban on fracking. That's when I came aboard the campaign, right? Because that was the first major candidate for president in history that said we want to ban fracking. And, you know, so it's nice to see Elizabeth Warren. It's nice to see other Democrats. I think also Cory Booker, Marianne Williamson saying they want to ban fracking. But the truth of the matter is you've got to look at the people who were there from the beginning, who knew that we were out to protect our communities and protect our health and protect our children from the start. But I definitely welcome the position, without a doubt.
You know what's interesting to me? I don't want this isn't about like trying to demean Warren, but her whole thing is accountable capitalists. Accountable capitalism. I haven't met a lot of accountable capitalists when it comes to fossil fuel industry. Right. You know, ExxonMobil, we find out more treachery from them, how they hid this and covered this up. And other fossil fuel companies, yeah, they're changing their portfolio a little bit, wind, solar, renewables, but they're still in the game on fossil fuels. Can you really fight this urgent crisis holding hands with the capitalists?
Well, look at the plans, okay? Bernie Sanders' Green New Deal is $16 trillion. Elizabeth Warren's $3 trillion, okay? So although I do appreciate and love some of what Warren has said and her positions, you've got to look at the policies and which ones are stronger. You have to draw a distinction there. Bernie Sanders' policies are stronger. The Green New Deal is stronger. It deals with taking that money from the billionaire class, from the military. Elizabeth Warren's plan is rooted in exporting our renewable energy industries overseas. So that's capitalism, right? And she, you know, did vote for the military budget of Donald Trump, the most recent one. So
Pentagon is the biggest contributor to climate change in the world.
It is, absolutely. And I just came back from Mexico doing a Green New Deal conference there. And one of the major things that was pointed out that I heard at that conference is we know who's accountable. We know who's running the death squads in Central America. We know who owes us money, and that's the oligarchs and that's the military. We have to look at that within the United States as well, right? So we have to say the military spending is completely out of control and the oligarchy is not paying taxes. In just those two areas, you can pay to fix this country, you can pay to fix this this world in terms of climate change, in terms of our part of it from the United States. So we have to look at who's the strongest policies, right? So that's Bernie without question.
Last question, are you and Susan Sarandon going to ruin the election and elect Trump again?
Well, you have to talk to her. She just went that way. I think obviously that's absurd, right? I mean, look at the most unhinged comments of Hillary Clinton this afternoon. I think the voters understand that when they're given a choice for real change and real authenticity, which is the Bernie Sanders campaign, that's going to beat Donald Trump. And I mean, look at what's going on in Iowa, right? Iowa, Bernie beats Trump, Warren,
only one.
And Warren and Biden don't. And we have the media against us. We know that. We have, a clear bias that we're seeing on television. But the facts remain that when you have a campaign that's a movement of the people, that will be more powerful than anything. And that's what we're building right here, right now. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to win. So, you know, honestly, the media loves to make big stories about who's blaming who for what, you know. And I will say that just like last time, I will do everything that I can to defeat Donald Trump, right? You know that. I was on the Democratic Platform Committee. We wrote, between the Sanders campaign and the Clinton campaign, the most progressive document that's ever been produced by a political party in the United States, and I was going to fight for that in the 2016 election. At the same time, this is the moment where we have to say no to the neoliberal class, no to the Biden, Clinton, Obama past, which didn't do what it was supposed to do for the American people. It didn't protect the environment. It didn't raise up the working class. It didn't raise the minimum wage. It didn't protect us when it comes to health care. We have to start to think about how the failures of those policies are right on display right now in the Democratic primaries, and there is only one candidate who we know we trust in the long haul, and that's Bernie Sanders.
And what are you working on these days? Any new films, any new projects?
Yeah, I have 3 new projects coming up right now. I'm doing an episodic series on climate change called Climate Revolution. I'm making a new film with HBO called about the border and climate change, so about climate migration. Because if what we think is bad at the border right now, just wait until climate change kicks in. We're talking about 1 billion climate refugees worldwide, so we're tracking stories of people who are forced to migrate because of climate change from both sides, from Paradise, from New Orleans, and from the Virgin Islands, and from obviously Central America where there's horrible drought. So climate and migration, that's my next big project with HBO. And I have a live solo performance that I've been doing all across the nation, which we're going to broadcast live from a very important theater here in New York City in January. I can't tell you the name because it's going to be announced in a matter of weeks, but look out for that. It's called The Truth Has Changed. It's about smear and misinformation from the fossil fuel industry, smear and misinformation in the media. Some of the things that you and I witnessed firsthand during 2016.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Appreciate it, my friend.
All right.